My name is Elizabeth Acevedo. I'm the author of Inheritance, a visual poem, and today I'm going to share some tips on what it's like to write a poem that you want to share with the world and perform on stage, and the kinds of things you might want to keep in mind as you start rehearsing and preparing for a performance of your poem so that you just feel super confident on stage when you get there. I'm also going to recite my own poem so you can get a little taste of what it's like. Some people tell me to fix my hair. And by fix, they mean straighten. They mean whiten. But how do you fix this shipwrecked history of hair? The true meaning of stranded, when trusses hug tight like African cousins in ship bellies. Do they imagine their great-grandchildren would look like us and would try to escape them how we do, trying to find ways to erase them out of our skin, to iron them out of our hair, this wild tangle of hair that strangles air. You call them wild curl, I call them breathing, antecedents spiraling. Can you see them in this wet hair that waves like hello? And yo, they say Dominicans do the best hair. We can wash, set, flatten the spring in any lock. But what they mean is we're the best at swallowing amnesia. In a cup of morir soñando, die dreaming. We'd rather do that than live in this reality caught between orange juice and milk, between reflections of the sun and whiteness. What they mean is, why would you date a black man? What they mean is, a prieto cocolo. What they mean is, why would two oppressed people come together? It's 2 times the trouble. What they really mean is, have you thought of your daughter's hair? So I have a few tips on how to find your inspiration. The very first one is, if you want to be a writer, you kind of have to walk through the world as a writer, which means whenever you're looking around you, you're thinking, where is there an image I could write down? Or, oh, I just heard something. Would that be an interesting piece of dialogue? Or when you see something incredibly beautiful, you think to yourself, how would I describe this to someone else? So you're constantly in a state of taking in information. The poet Kaveh Akbar calls it being permeable, right? And I think that that's really the truth of what it's like to look for inspiration, is you're just letting it kind of soak in at all times, but you have to trust that you're the writer at all times and you're looking at the world in that way. Some other tips, because I said there were gonna be a few more. I think that you have to find the piece of art that inspires you, that you're trying to make or imitate, right? And so if you're a writer, you kind of have to have maybe 1 or 2 books that you're able to turn to, that you say, on my days when I'm completely stuck and I can't think anymore, there's this, Renee Watson book that I know I can go to because it's really gonna spark my creative energy. Or, you know what, I'm gonna look at an art exhibit online because I think that looking at some visual art will really move me to think about my own language and my own writing, right? And so that's a really great tip, and something that I do all the time when I feel kind of just like my creative well is dry, is I look at what are other artists doing? Who am I in conversation with? And can I find inspiration from them? So 2 tips for writing when you're actually trying to get a poem out. 1, I'm going to suggest that folks really show themselves a lot of grace. A first draft of anything kind of sucks, right? And nobody likes to look at their own work when it sucks. But you really have to be mindful of, I am making something that has never been made, and I'm going to be really gentle with it and with myself as I try to translate what's in my head onto a piece of paper, right? And so the first thing is just to forgive yourself and the draft for how bad it's gonna be, right? The second thing that I would say about getting a poem out of your body and onto a piece of paper is that it's okay if the poem is in response to an exercise, right? When we watch athletes, we don't think that they just pull up on game day and they're just like going at it, right? And making every shot. You have to work out, you have to exercise. And so if you're stuck at getting something out of your head, doing a writing prompt or a writing exercise or going online and trying to find like, what's a question I could respond to that might help me get some of what I'm feeling out is a great thing to do, right? And there's no shame in something having to be prompted for you to get your art across. So let's say you've already written a poem that you know you want to say out loud. Here are 2 tips that I think would be helpful as you start thinking about performance that we don't often really talk about in the spoken word community. And the first one is, take a deep breath before you even walk on stage, right? The moment you walk on stage, people are looking at you and you're on. But you taking that moment to just like inhale, remind yourself what you're about to do and why you're about to do it, and then exhale is so important to just have a ritual for like every time I go on stage. This is how I make sure that I'm grounded, yeah? And then the second thing I would say is you really wanna make sure that you're in control of the poem. When you get on a stage and you're saying a poem out loud, your body might freak out. You might start shaking, your legs are shaking, you might feel like you're drawn to tears because all of a sudden you're saying this out loud for the first time or even the second, third time. And so I would just suggest that you feel really comfortable with the subject matter and that you've practiced it enough that you can say, regardless of whether someone's heckling or whether someone laughs in the middle of it or whether or not I have a flashback to something, I'm safe and I trust myself within this text. Thank you all so much for watching and listening to my tips on feeling inspired, writing and performing spoken word. I hope that when you sit down or you walk on stage, you feel super comfortable with what you're about to say out loud.